Tony and myself, we spent hours in this game to get you an idea what you can expect in this video. And
no, I didn't play.
Sorry, what?
I cleaned the workshop while you were playing.
Yeah, but this is also important. So hello my friends and welcome back to my channel Armored Fall. Metro Exodus on the PlayStation 5 and the Xbox Series X, that's the topic for today. And we're doing a HDR analyze video on both consoles. So we're talking about HGiG, dynamic tone mapping on, and of course, we're talking about, what is behind this door? Oh my god, shit. Dolby Vision, of course. We're talking about Dolby Vision. I have no idea what I can expect here. So the fact that we don't have any sliders in the video section from Metro Exodus for HDR, that actually can just mean one thing. And yes, that means just one thing. Metro Exodus on the PlayStation 5 and the Xbox Series X supports the internal calibration from the consoles. So that means it's very important what you set up here, regardless if you're using HGiG or dynamic tone mapping. We're talking about Dolby Vision a little bit later. So again, it is very important what you set up here, or that you actually do the setup in the correct way. And yeah, in terms of HGiG in the correct way, yeah, we're also talking about this a little bit later. And of course I try not to spoil it too much, but unfortunately I have to show you a couple of things like this one, very beginning from the game, so no worries at all. And I did of course some measurements. I compared HGiG in the correct way, HGiG in the wrong way, dynamic tone mapping, and of course Dolby Vision in terms of brightness in a couple of sceneries like this one. And yeah, what I mean with actually HGiG in the wrong way and the correct way, I will show you this a little bit later, okay? So let's get to the measurements. And I took especially this scene because this is a very, very bright scene, or the sun is always changing, or the clouds in front of the sun are always disappearing or whatever, and makes the picture actually crazy bright. And with crazy bright, I really mean crazy bright. So when we're talking about dynamic tone mapping on the PlayStation 5, and by the way, I compared, of course, Xbox and PlayStation 5 in terms of HDR in the brightness, and in the normal modes like dynamic tone mapping and HGiG, I did not find any difference between PlayStation 5 version or the Xbox version. And again, we're talking about Dolby Vision a little bit later. But let's start here. Dynamic tone mapping, we're talking about from this bright object here. I have to change my filter, otherwise I will die. We're talking about 670 candela, 670 candela. This is crazy bright, and that's why it is really a little bit hard to look at this for a long time, because it is bright, okay? So when we're talking about HGiG in the correct way, which means we're setting up HGiG in the console level in the really correct way, where, and I will show you this later on, we're talking about 650 candela, 20 candelas difference. So just to make this clear, it is not very easy to measure all the time the same brightness, because the brightness is always changing, and it's also very, very important where you put the meter. So I tried this over a long time to find actually the peak brightness, and this is what I came up with, okay? So at this very moment it looks like dynamic tone mapping is slightly brighter, 20 candela over HGiG in the correct way. But now let's talk about HGiG in the wrong way. Okay, so let me quickly show you what I mean when I'm talking about wrong and right settings from HGiG. And it doesn't matter on what console you're doing this, Xbox or PlayStation 5, it is exactly the same approach, okay? So I'm just showing you this on the PlayStation 5 at the moment. Very important to understand, before you do any changes in this menu, make sure you set the operation mode, what you like to use. HGiG, dynamic tone mapping off, or dynamic tone mapping on, okay? In this case, we're starting with HGiG in the correct way. So according to the instruction, you should set the sun until the symbol is barely visible. So, and now we're going one step ahead. So we don't want to see the sun at all, okay? So next page, exactly the same approach. This is barely visible, and we go one step ahead. So now we can't see it anymore. And this is very simple. We just go all the way down till we can't go any further. So that's the correct way. Now when I'm talking about the wrong way, what I did, and I'm still doing testing, and I know many people coming up with, hey, that's wrong, that's wrong. Yeah, I get it, but I found also it has some advantages over the correct way. So what I have done is you turn dynamic tone mapping off, and now I adjusted this screen until I can't see the sun at all, and I went 2 clicks down. So now I can see the sun I can see it, okay? So next picture the same until I can't see it at all. This is this, and now 2 clicks down. So, and this stays still the same, we're going all the way down. So, and now we have set up, dynamic tone mapping off more or less, but now we're turning this, or we're changing this back to HGiG, and now let's have a look on the results. Okay, so back here with this screen, and with the wrong HGiG settings, I was able to measure 673 candela, a little bit higher, 3 candela higher than dynamic tone mapping. Just maybe, coincidence, but you can see actually there's a little bit of a difference between the wrong and the right settings. But now the question is, what about Dolby Vision? Okay, so with Dolby Vision on the Xbox, Dolby Vision, I was able to measure actually 610 candela. So to make something clear here, just because I'm measuring 670 candela in in HGiG and dynamic tone mapping, doesn't mean that is correct, okay? So just because something is brighter doesn't make it right, okay? Because I do not know what brightness this should have at this very moment, okay? So, but also what I have to say, I doubted that this game was actually coded in Dolby Vision. I just doubt it, because we need to understand something. When we're talking about Dolby Vision, then Dolby Vision takes the information, the information on what the TV is capable of from the TV itself. It's a complete different story. So in Dolby Vision, it doesn't matter at all what you set up in the menu here, because it will not take it. It will not take the information, okay? And how I can prove it is actually, so when I'm using Dolby Vision, you can actually disable allow HDR10. You can disable it and just tick this box. So, but this was one too much, sorry. But when you go to calibrate HDR for games, it will not go in any HDR mode at all. This is just completely wrong at the moment. And again, it doesn't matter what you set up here. It doesn't matter, because Dolby Vision is taking the information from the TV. So that means, again, I doubt that this game was rendered or coded or whatever in Dolby Vision. That is maybe the reason why we see a little bit of a gap here between the highest brightness and the lowest brightness in Dolby Vision. So again, highest brightness, really dynamic tone mapping, and if you like it, HGiG in the wrong way, and Dolby Vision is last place. But that doesn't mean it looks bad. It looks actually really, really right at the moment. And again, I don't know if this is now okay or better, or HGiG is better, or dynamic tone mapping. Okay, so again, just because we have a difference in brightness between Dolby Vision on the Xbox and PlayStation 5 HGiG doesn't mean that Dolby Vision is not doing a great job. So that at this very moment is the PlayStation 5 version. And in this particular scene, I chose this one because it looks so great in terms of contrast. It really looks great on the PlayStation 5, and the same counts for the Xbox version. So I can't tell the difference. Full stop, I can't tell the difference, and for sure not when I'm sitting in a reasonable viewing distance. It's very hard for the eye, or for me, to tell actually the brightness difference, if there is any, because I didn't measure this scene, because I was not able to do it, because it's always changing. It's very hard to get actually a peak reading from this scene. But in Dolby Vision on the Xbox Series X, the whole game looks fantastic. Okay, so we just talked about brightness so far, but what about details in very bright objects like we have here at the moment? Is there a difference between Dolby Vision, dynamic tone mapping, and of course HGiG wrong and in the correct settings? And what we have here now, Xbox Series X, Dolby Vision, and when I switch this to the PlayStation 5, it's very hard to tell. So this is PlayStation 5 with HGiG in the correct way, okay? Very hard to tell. And why it is hard to tell, of course, first of all, I'm not looking at the same angle at the same spot, and this change, of course, the reflection from the sun and whatever. But also it takes some time, of course, till the picture comes back. So it would be much easier, of course, to have a real side-by-side comparison, because maybe there is a big difference, or maybe a slightly difference, a minor difference. But between Dolby Vision and HGiG in the correct way, it is very hard to tell a difference, okay? So when we're talking about dynamic tone mapping, it is a little bit easier because it will blow out a little bit more details, unfortunately, because dynamic tone mapping tends sometimes to blow out details, especially very small objects. That's what I found. That's why I'm recommending actually HGiG in games where HGiG is working, and in this game it is working. So the other thing what I found, HGiG in the wrong way will, especially in this example or sample, it will blow out details here, because we're setting up HGiG on the PlayStation in a complete wrong way. Of course it will, I have to swap my filter, and of course it will blow out details, but what I found, not in all the cases. So in this case, because it is very, very bright and we have a lot of small objects, it is more likely that we have a blown out picture. But in other cases, like when you just look out here on the, and you have here the background from the houses or whatever, I can't find a difference. I can't find a difference in terms of HGiG wrong and correct. The only difference what I found is you have a higher brightness. You gain more brightness with the wrong settings. But again, it is wrong, of course. It is wrong because in some cases like this, you can clearly see, hey, you lose a little bit of details because the picture is getting too bright, okay? So, don't get me wrong, HGiG in the correct and in the wrong setting looks crazy good in this game. Okay, I'd like to show you a little bit more from the game in a second, but before we do this, we have to talk about this option menu here, video and gamma. So gamma, the standard setting is actually like this, and what I have done is I went one tick to the right side just to give it a little bit more brightness. So what I found so far, it will not blow out any details. What I found so far, when you go actually 2 ticks, then yes, you will details in the very bright object. So I would not recommend to go 2 ticks, okay? So if you're happy with the settings and the standard settings, just leave it, because that is what actually the developer did. I mean, that's the standard setting, okay? But anyway, I like it 1 tick more on the Xbox and on the PlayStation 5, okay? So, and what I like to show you here, and I hope no, we're not alone, of course not. I don't want to spoil it too much, but this is also very nice with the bright objects and very dark objects. It's very hard, you know, to play without sound because you have no idea what's going on. Oh. But this looks just fantastic. All this, look at this. This is Dolby Vision, still Dolby Vision. It is very, very bright. Hard to look at it. Very nice. The same with this fire here. I have no problem at all playing this game in Dolby Vision. And I think it's time for my conclusion. Okay, so what is my conclusion or my summary for Metro Exodus in terms of the best HDR settings? So let's start with the PlayStation 5 version, and let's say you owe a LG CX TV. So if you have the option to use HGiG, then I would go for it, because HGiG is the better option in my opinion over dynamic tone mapping. So, and especially when you use HGiG in the wrong way, what I showed you, then you get the same brightness as in dynamic tone mapping, but without the disadvantage from this dynamic tone mapping. So you won't have always this brightness change from dynamic tone mapping. So again, dynamic tone mapping is always analyzing the screen, and according to the information it will change the brightness or lower or brighten it up and so on. HGiG will stay the same as it is, you know, all the time. But again, in this game you're not losing anything in terms of the maximum brightness, not at all. So that's my recommendation, PlayStation 5 LG CX. Use HGiG in the wrong way, and if you like, then just go in terms of gamma 1 click ahead, but don't go 2 clicks, just 1 click. but you don't have to do this. This is really my own preference, and this is just amazing, amazing bright here. So, but what about the Xbox? So Xbox, it depends. So if you always also have an LG CX with the Xbox, then I also would say HGiG is the way to go in the wrong way, because you will end up with the same HDR effect as on the PlayStation 5. But let's say you just have a TV where, oh my god, this was not good. Let's say you have just a TV where you don't have HGiG, but you have Dolby Vision. Then of course you should go with Dolby Vision, because it will get you, in my experience, a better HDR picture over dynamic tone mapping. But again, this is complete up to you. In this game it looks really amazing, all the HDR. I need to, what is going on? Is it too cold, or I'm running out of air, or why is my controller vibrating? I have no idea. What are you doing? Just go. And he said something, oh, can you hear this? No, I can't hear this because I'm not playing with sound. This is not good. This is not a game what you can't or what you can play without sound. It's not gonna work. Did you hear that? No. Okay, anyway. So my conclusion is very clear. HGiG is working great in this game, and Dolby Vision looks also great. Okay, let me just... Okay, I don't want to spoiler too much, but you know, of course it's a good thing to show you something. Did they get you? No? Good. Okay, where have I been? Okay, yeah, again, HGiG is doing a great job in this game. Again, a way better job in my opinion than dynamic tone mapping, but we have different opinions here. You have your own opinion, I have my opinion. Just give it a try. I told you what I think about this game. Great HDR effects, and I will talk about my first impression from the PlayStation 5 version and the Xbox version in a different video, and then I would tell you what I actually think about, yeah, the resolution from the game. Okay, thank you very much for watching me. I see you next time. Bye.